Hey, what's up, everyone? Ooh. I want to make sure the applause is going. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, well, Merry Christmas. Hold on, let me turn this off. All right. Merry Christmas, guys. Did anyone have work off today? Because I think today is technically an observed holiday. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I hope everyone had an amazing Christmas holiday, whatever you guys ended up doing, whether it was by yourselves or with family or whatnot. I hope that y'all had a blast. And I hope that Santa was gracious towards everyone, that everyone got the gifts that they wanted, and that they weren't on the naughty list. My family, they're funny. My mom and dad still do like a Santa gift. So like we all give each other presents, but then your big gift, like the one that's like the most expensive or the one that you wanted, that's like your Santa gift. So it'll say from Santa. So I think that's pretty fun, and it's just like a tradition that we've had. So, but yeah, let's see who's here, and then we'll get right into it. We'll start the stream. But it looks like we have Harley Dave. What's going on, brother? He was first in here. We've got MG. What up, dude? Shield Wall of Dragons. Hello, Jay. Hello, Cajun Corey. He says. Jay says, what's up, Max? Oh, thanks, Cajun. I appreciate it. Tell him I say hello as well. I hope he had a great Christmas. Smile is getting ready for work tomorrow. I know you're lurking, Smile. Thank you for being here. Rudy. Oh, Rudy, nice, man. We're actually going to be building some Black Templars tonight. Hell yeah. And then Dr. Rachel. Wouldn't be a stream without our Dr. Rachel. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. And with that, you know, like I said, Merry Christmas, and I hope that you guys had a fantastic one. I'm going to be showing off some of the gifts that I got this year. Let me know in the comments or in the chat what you guys ended up getting this year. I would love to hear if y'all got some good loot, right? And I also wanted to say thank you for such a great turnout on the Warhammer, the Gatekeep Warhammer video. We are pushing towards 4,000 views, so that's great. My most viewed video right now on the channel is at about 20 something thousand. And then right below that is, I think, 4,000. So we're pushing towards that like top, viewed video on the channel. So thank you guys for supporting that, commenting, being a part of that. That was, like I said, kind of a labor of love. That was something I scripted, I edited, I re-scripted and like re-edited and took about a week just trying to make sure that I got all the points that I wanted to make, and I said what I needed to say, and in a manner that was professional, tactful, and also kind of direct, I wanted to really kind of make a statement with this one. So, thankfully, it's been doing well. I still think that it's got room to grow. Like, I think that it could probably be something greater or bigger than what it already is now. But I will tell you guys, we are worse off than we expected. The video is probably at like an 80% ratio for likes to dislike. It's my lowest one. I think it's probably my lowest ratio right now on the channel, at 80%. There are a lot of people who did not like what I had to say, and they were vocal about it. They made their stance in the comment section, so much so that like on Christmas, because I published it 2 days before Christmas. So like Christmas Eve, I was reading some of these comments and I literally had to turn my phone off because I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is cancer. This is absolute cancer. So like I said, we're a little bit worse off than we expected in terms of where I thought we were in the Warhammer 40K, like Games Workshop, Warhammer community. And I hate to call it a community, but like family, I guess you could say. There are a lot of people who have the insane notion, the mentally brain dead and brain rotted notion that Warhammer was specifically created as an allegory for alt-right Nazis. That it was created for the implicit or explicit notion that the allegory behind it was a satirical look at the alt-right. That is the only reason why it was created, and that it is explicitly political. It was created, and you chat, you guys are smart, you guys know. This thing was created in like the mid 70s and then really grew in the 80s. Games Workshop created this as a fun tabletop game, as a strategy war game, right? That was for fun-loving nerds with glasses to go, oh, I sunk your battleship kind of thing. It was the evolution of these board games. It's the evolution of chess. And as time went on, the lore began to grow. And like the history of these characters began to grow as well. But to have the absolute brain dead notion that people would think that Warhammer 40K is explicitly meant to make a political statement is one of the wildest things I've heard on the internet. And I keep getting comments on that video, on shorts that I had, short YouTube videos that I have and TikTok videos that I've posted. And it's all the same people going, well, yeah, the Imperium is, like a genocidal, xenophobic, authoritarian, theocratic regime and empire that rules with an iron fist. And I'm like, yeah, they are. What about it? Like that's the Imperium. Cool. Tell me something I don't know. What are we talking about here? Are you trying to say that that's like the alt-right, that this is the satirical notion of the alt-right? Okay, cool. Like, what if you want to believe that, go right ahead, buddy. But you can't tell me, like, the commenters can't tell me this notion of like, oh, the Imperium is the alt-right, but they're also super progressive because they allow female space marines or trans space marines. It makes no logical sense, and I can't wrap my head around some of the individuals who continually think that this space, that this war game, that this tabletop miniature building war game was built explicitly to poke fun at or to create an allegory specifically for like ideological and political intrigue. That modern politics was somehow created in the 80s and they were commenting on it through Warhammer 40k. That's fucking bullshit. Even if there is allegorical political views in it, sure, I can recognize that. I can totally recognize that the Imperium is a satirical view of an authoritarian regime. Absolutely. That's totally what it is. But is it trying to comment on Donald Trump's time in office? Fuck no, dude. The Imperium was created back in the 80s. The Imperium of mankind, Space Marines were all created in the 80s. Trump wasn't even like a topic of discussion. So just little things like that I just find is so brain dead to me, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Well, no, it's not just me. It's a lot of you guys out there that agree with me on this, but like I said, the comment section for that video, like I said, some of those people were just cancer. Oh, okay, newbie. So it was the second edition that really settled on the Grimdark. Okay, that's cool. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, it's literally just a fantasy game that got the futuristic sci-fi treatment. It all went downhill when they started letting Matt Ward write all the codices. Brightest Day, we're actually about to look at the Black Templars Codex, their previous one. I don't know. You'll have to let me or send me or a link or let me know, because I think who wrote this one? Graham McNeil wrote the Black Templars Codexes from my understanding, and that one seems pretty based. Yeah, Cajun, same thing. They said that Star Wars was always political. It has themes of like morality and ethics, but like to make a modern day political stance, 40k is one of the least political things. The first incarnation of 40k Rogue Trader was inspired by punk rock cyberpunk, and it has an aesthetic that matches that. Yes, newbie, 100%, dude. A2D2, hey, good to see you. It's been a while. He streams too late for me, might not make it to 4. You know, those people who left those comments don't know shit about it. I've never played it, never bought anything from it, never set foot in a GW shop. They were told by someone it was that way. 100% Shieldwall. It's the same thing with comic books, right? We see the same thing with comics. Where we see like these individuals on Twitter that constantly compliment or comment like, oh my god, this is the groundbreaking first issue of like a trans mutant, or this is the groundbreaking first issue of like two females like having, kissing, or a lesbian couple or whatever. And that's fine, that's great. Like I'm not here to bash on that, but those individuals will never buy that comic. If you love that comic so much, go support it, go buy it. They will never do that because A, they either don't have the money, or B, they... Sorry, my cat is being wild right now. He's being a little adventurous. Or B, they are... or A, they don't have the money, or B, they don't want to spend the money on a comic book. So, I don't know. It's... Oh, Gideon, he's probably all wound up from Christmas. He's climbing on all the presents. Your gift is delayed until second week. Oh, brightest day, dude. Thank you so much for that, by the way. And don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. So, thank you just for sending that in the first place. I appreciate that. Oh, you were talking about 5th edition. Okay. 40K came out of Britain at a time of massive recession, worse than now. At the time, the country was pretty grim and dark. 40K was pure escapism from pretty dark days in real life. Thank you for saying that, Jay, and thank you for your input. I have no idea what that was like at the time, so that's super interesting that you say that. Because, I mean, that's what 40K has always been for me. It's always been escapism. Haters gonna hate. Thanks, Rudy. Yeah, those people find racism and hate everything they see. Well, just look at the success of The Witcher. Oh, Paul Bustle, you mean that 7% on Rotten Tomatoes? Oh my goodness, 7%. Ugh, too funny, man. That's what happens. Like, people will say, like, oh, I'm so supportive of this. This is the best thing ever. Yas, queen, like, go support and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, put your money where your mouth is. Go support this thing. If that's Bill Burr has a fantastic, it's a really funny comedy sketch about women's basketball, the WNBA. You guys should go watch. So great to see everyone here. Let's go ahead and head on over to the top-down cam. Is this the right one? Boom, there we go. All right, so like I said, thank you guys again for watching that Warhammer video. Share it out if you enjoy it. We could use the support and the likes and the promoting of it because it's a topic that I think needs to be discussed. So I think it's important. What else was I going to say? Oh, if you guys also haven't seen these or haven't seen the stream, go watch Gary's Witcher stream from last night. I was on the floor laughing. I was dying laughing between him and Az. They were both crying. It was so funny trying to watch Gary play this video game. I've never had a more fun time watching two grown men trying to play a Witcher video game. Yeah, no, so go check that out. Go support those dudes. That was so funny. All right, well, first up on the docket, boom, check out these guys. So this is issue 340 to 359 of Walt Simonson's Thor run, which is arguably one of the quintessential Thor runs ever written. So I've read this before, but always in like trade paperback editions. So this was the first. This will be the first time that I actually get to read this in the floppy, in like the single issue edition. So I'm really excited. I flipped through them and they are just gorgeous. Couple newsstands in here, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Walt Simonson doing this run. This is the introduction of Beta Ray Bill. Yeah, that cover. Look at that cover, man. It's so rad. Beta Ray Bill is such a cool character. This is another great cover, too. Yeah, Gary cannot ever have a horse. Well, once the thing that was making me like just absolutely die laughing was that his camera kept spinning and it was making me nauseous. And Az was like, you have to stop toggling the different, like, you know, perspective, like to walk and to look around are two different like toggle buttons. And he was just like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not touching the controller. And the video is still just swirling. And I was like, this is unbelievable. It looks like someone who is blind is playing this. It's so funny. Once again, Beta Ray Bill. This was part of the Surtur saga, the finale of the Surtur saga, where like the forces of hell, of Muspelheim or whatever that one is, no, I think it is just hell. Whatever world that Surtur partakes in, he comes to Earth, and so all of Earth's mightiest heroes have to come down and kill him. It's pretty cool. I feel like Thor has so much good history and so many good runs. I want to get to some of them one day. Yeah, absolutely, man. I would highly encourage this one. And surprisingly, I would actually encourage Jason Aaron's run too. I think up until probably issue 25 is a great example of young Thor, middle-aged Thor, and old Thor. So that was a good gift. Thank you, Mom. Mom knows what's up. Mom's a nerd as well, so she loves all this stuff. This is the novel, the first book in the trilogy of the Eisenhorn series by Dan Abnett. I've read this before digitally, but I don't have the paperback, so I asked for the paperback, grabbed that. But Xenos is the first one. Also, I want to read this real quick because I think this is, what do you call it? I think it's pertinent. Every book, every Warhammer 40k book, and every Black Library book opens kind of with this, some sort of introduction here to the world, to the universe. Some sort of iteration of this. Not the exact same words every single time, but it is very similar every time. Yeah, Flash. Shout out to Mom for sure. And then, but I thought that this was interesting because it says at the bottom here, this is a dark and terrible era where you will find little comfort or hope. Forget the power of technology and science. Forget the promise of progress and advancement. Forget any notion of common humanity or compassion. There is no peace amongst the stars, for in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Every book like that, and I brought this one out just to show you guys an example. This is Hell's Reach. Highly recommend this book. It's about the Black Templars and their final stand at Hive Hell's Reach on the world of, I believe it's on the world of Apocalypse. But this is well read, so the pages are probably a little beat up. But Hell's Reach is a fantastic book, so I'd highly recommend this one if you guys are looking to get into Space Marines in general, or just Warhammer. But once again, very similar, not the same exact words, but very similar. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Because this was the Space Marines Battles novel. So, like, there are, like, I think there are a lot of them. I was about to say 20, and I was like, no. It's like more like 50. But there are a ton of different novels within this same series, the Space Marine Battles series. But it goes on to say, forget the power of technology and science, very similar to the last one, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding. For in the grim, dark future, there is only war. There is no peace among the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of thirsting gods. So this is why I always go back to the books whenever, you know, like I said, those comments on the last video or comments on TikTok or whatever, whenever people come to me and they keep saying, Warhammer is political, Warhammer talks about different progressive views. Every single book says, forget the promise of progress and understanding. For in the grim, dark future, there is only war. There is no time within Warhammer to have this type of progressive messaging. It just doesn't make sense. And when you read every one of these novels, it's at the very beginning. You cannot miss it. So I always thought that was kind of interesting and figured I'd bring it up just because why not? Abnett's so good, I started re-uploading my Horus Rising reads. Gotta reread the next one. Ooh, Brightest Day, where are you at with the Horus Heresy? They're on book like 20-something, right? That quote is why progressives hate 40k. It's the opposite of progressive. See, Jay, that's the thing. It's like, as much as people want to say that these factions or that this world is progressive, it's just not. It's unfortunate, and you could want 40k to be progressive, but it's just not. Like, it's so dark and grim and horrifying, and it's that's just what the nature of it is. If people have an issue, take an issue with Games Workshop. They're the ones who wrote it. You know what I mean? I'm not the one who writes the rules here. I'm just reading the stuff from the books. This is what I have. This is I don't have the author next to me to tell me, okay, what are you thinking? I don't have the Games Workshop employees next to me. I have the books, and I'm going off of the books, and I'm going off of the codexes and all that stuff. And that's what you see in these. Newbie. Pulling out the dopest quote from that book. The hero of Hell's Reach, they say, as if there was only one. Oh, dude, it gives me chills every single time. Grimaldus is the absolute Chad of the Black Templars, but all the other, Emperor's Champion, all the Sword Brethren, so rad. I'm looking at more of this stuff, and I'm realizing I got a lot of reading material. Some Jordan B. Peterson for some more philosophical, theological, psychological reading for when I'm really feeling introspective and I want to be a little bit more wise in my 29 years of life. This was actually a crowdfunded book that showed up, but I'm really interested in reading this. Kozor, Descent into Madness. This is gorgeous. The artwork in this book looks amazing, so I'm looking forward to reading that. Another comic. What would you expect? Stan Lee's Alliance's Orphans. So from a buddy recommended this to me. This is the hardcover, but this is kind of like a sci-fi fantasy book that Stan wrote, and they were able to get it printed. Excuse me. But looks beautiful. Story looks very, very interesting. I am intrigued, to say in the least. Especially it's Stan Lee, and this cover is gorgeous. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Hopefully I can do a review on that as well. Tidier room, Max. Yeah, thanks, newbie. People continually project their own views and perspectives onto these old fandoms instead of reading it as is. Stop injecting your own context into these stories. Yeah, that's the thing, Rachel, is like, I after reading a lot of, these comments, it's like, dude, you obviously have no clue. Their hubris, and the fact that they say this with such confidence and smug arrogance is disgusting. And yet that's what I always see, and I always hear it. Yeah, Rachel, I agree. Peterson's books are great. This will be the first one that I've read. I've always just listened to his lectures. This one is really cool. I'm very, very... I think more so this one than I am the Stan Lee one, though. Interestingly enough. Tse Chun, and I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that, but The Forgotten Blade. This one looks so rad. The artwork in this is just gorgeous. It's very distinct, very stylized, but once again, kind of this like more dystopian sci-fi fantasy graphic novel. So I am stoked to read this one. And it's like, I think it's deluxe. It's a little bit larger than a normal graphic novel. And then this is just straight fantasy. Elric. Dude, the artwork in this thing, holy balls. I have not read this yet, but it is it's like Witcher meets Conan. Think Witcher meets Conan. So freaking rad. Look at that art, dude. It's dark and just nasty and realistic and gritty, and but also like very fantasy-esque. It is so freaking gorgeous. Look at that city. Ooh. But yeah, very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Visceral. Visceral is what I was looking for. So, yeah, this is going to be a really cool read. I'm looking forward to Elric. And apparently this is only like volume 1. There are like tons of other different volumes of Elric. So that'll be rad. I also got a new chair, which I'm sitting in. And I got a new desk. But the desk won't be here until tomorrow. So I'll put that together. Probably post a picture of it or something. And yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's... Oh, and then some clothing. Like my mom designed a hoodie for me. My dad got me a shirt, like a workout shirt. So stuff like that. The key to understanding the politics of 40K is to know that it has more in common with the fall of the Roman Empire and the slide into the Dark Ages than the politics of leftist America. Jay, that's a great point. Even if, and here's what I will agree to, is that 40K probably does have some nuances and some allegory within it. Absolutely. Every art piece tends to have some sort of subtext, some underlying theme or some allegory to it, right? So even if that is the thing for Warhammer 40K, it's probably going to be about ancient, more of like historical, larger historical events that have happened. They wouldn't be basing it off of progressive modern day ideals. The universe has taken 30 plus years to finally be what it is today, to be created to what it is today. I highly doubt that the people who were writing all this stuff had the foresight and the understanding to be like, I can just tell that in 2022, these are what the politics are going to be. So let's make an allegory about that. You know, if anything, they, like you said, Jay, it's going to be more about the fall of the Roman Empire, because that's essentially what the Imperium is. They are so much of what the Roman Empire was. I want a wardrobe from Max's parents. Well, seeing as how it was developed by a British company and the lore written by classically educated people, it has zero to do with American anything. I sure as fuck hope so. Because so much of... And hey, this is from a guy who has served in the Marine Corps. This is from a guy who has served in the United States government. I know what it's like to be a part of the United States government. I have been a cog in the machine. I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like. I have been there. And I still am like... The American politics tend to get very, very weighed down by things that tend to not matter sometimes. You know, it's a lot of bureaucracy. And like I said, I love the hell out of my country. I would die for this country. There's a reason why I have a flag and my Marine Corps flag and everything. Oh, have a great night, Smile. Get some good sleep. Thank you for being here. And I can still recognize that there's still some stuff that is not so great about the American government. Yeah, Harley, you know it too, brother. You served as well in the Marine Corps. You and I both know it. Shieldwall, you served. You know it. It's totally fine to accept and to talk about that there are issues within the American government. That's totally fine. But that doesn't mean that I still wouldn't take a bullet for it. I would still absolutely die for this place. So it didn't even break into the American market until the late 80s, years after it was created. That's the thing, Shieldwall. Like in my video, I mentioned that they didn't actually even have their base of operations was in the UK for the longest time. They didn't even have a base of operations for distribution in the US until the late 80s. So we're talking like early 90s when people were actually starting to get a hold of like Warhammer stuff within the US. That's not that long ago. That is not that long ago. But yeah. Hey, what's up, Silverlock? Good to see you. All right. Well, speaking of Warhammer and all that good stuff, this is let me show you guys what I've been thinking about creating. So initially, I'm gonna go over here. This is gonna be a little bit of a lore stream too, so I hope you guys don't mind me doing some lore as well as some building. But I'm gonna move this over. So if we look at the old Black Templars Codex, I'm going to borrow this real quick. So if you guys want to, you can go check out the Black Templar Codex from the Internet Archive. It's basically a big library of books that have been scanned. You can like buy a membership and start, you know, I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I'm just trying to give you guys a heads up. If you guys want to read some Warhammer books, you can start a subscription or whatnot. Hey Soul, what's going on, brother? Good to be here. So let me zoom in here. But if you guys can see, so this is the, like I said, this is the old Black Templars Codex. So we're gonna go into some lore. X-Ray Girl should be here. She would love this. But I was looking at, okay, what Templar models do I want to build, right? I don't want to really build any neophytes. Those are kind of like Space Marine scouts, so I'm like, pass. Even though I do have some of the models for them. So then I was like, okay, I could probably make some initiates, but the initiates are very much just your regular troop choice. I want to make something more elite. So then I went down to the Sword Brethren. Look at that art, dude. Whew. Boys, Warhammer 40k art is gorgeous. Yes, this is not in any way sponsored by Games Workshop either. Or else they'll take my stream down. And so the Sword Brethren for the Black Templars, it says the greatest warriors in a fighting company will be organized into the Marshal's household, the equivalent of a Codex chapter's first company, known as the Sword Brethren. So these guys are kind of your veterans of the industry. These guys have been on multiple crusades, are mighty heroes whose legends have become part of the chapter's history, every Black Templar's ambition to become one of its elite, clad in the finest suits of armor and bedecked with crusader seals. The Sword Brethren are the very image of a Baroque warrior knight. When a marshal dies, it is from the Sword Brethren that his replacement will come, and only the best and bravest are worthy of this great honor. Who will succeed the marshal is decided by ritual combat, during which all who would contest the right to lead the crusade will battle another with various weapons, as well as pitting their strategic and tactical prowess against their opponent. So, basically, the Sword Brethren are badasses. They are extreme warriors. They are veterans of their craft. The only thing is that they are clad in Terminator armor. Now, I don't know if this is the rule or if this is the exception, but I think that you can have Sword Brethren that are just in regular power armor. Because then if we look at this codex, so this is the most up-to-date codex, I believe. This was the special edition one that came in the box set. But if we look back here, now that we have Primaris kind of introduced, you have Primaris Sword Brethren. And the Primaris Sword Brethren are kind of like, as well as they're kind of like the veterans as well. I don't know if they are the same experience as the Sword Brethren in Terminator armor, but I would assume they are the Primaris Sword Brethren, because it says here, let me read their thing. Every sword brother has earned their place amongst the marshal's household through acts of unswerving faith and spectacular violence. So the Primaris sword brethren are actually very close in similarity with the regular sword brethren, except instead of clad in the Terminator armor, they're now in the Primaris armor. So with that being said, the other options that I had were potentially Harley, what? Stop. We need the first gay kiss in order to make this worthy of net shits. I don't have Josh around, so I don't know if we can do that, unfortunately. So the other option that I was thinking is like, because the Primaris Crusader squad is pretty much like your regular Primaris squad, or your Crusader squad. The Emperor's Champion is different in that, here, we'll go to the Emperor's Champion page of the Codex. Because then the other option here, oh, that's not the right one. There we go. The heroes of the chapter, the High Marshal. So High Marshals basically lead a lot of these crusades, a lot of these different wars. And it says that it is rare for the entire chapter to be assembled at any one time, for the majority of its warriors are split between a number of different crusades. Each of these crusades is led by a marshal. So then I was like, oh shit, I need to build some marshals. You know what I mean? Because if I have different crusades all over the galaxy, I'm gonna need some marshals to send those dudes out, right? To lead those guys. And then the High Marshal is the one who kind of leads the pack. It says, but above them is the High Marshal, a warrior with centuries of experience in the very crucible of battle. His own fighting skills will be unsurpassed with guns, blades, and bare hands. His very rank, speaking of past littered with bloody, beaten enemies in the most terrifying of inhuman sort. It is not enough, though, for the High Marshal to the chapter's foremost warrior. He must also be a superb tactician, grounded in the teachings of those who must have gone before him and honored through countless decisions made in the maelstrom of battle. So, I feel like the High Marshal is only like one in a few, but you could probably have multiple marshals kind of spread throughout the galaxy, like I said, to kind of serve your crusade, leading a couple of your other Crusader squads. I love this High Marshal's quote. So this is from High Marshal Gerwald's prayer of repugnance. Kill aliens and warp-spawned filth wherever you find them, and in whatever circumstances you find them. There is no such thing as tolerance for such as them as far as the Emperor is concerned. It's so fucking metal. It's so like, it's so far gone that it's satirical, and I love it. I love how grimdark this is, right? Yeah, Brogan, he says, I love that the Black Templars lawyering their way around the Codex by always crusading. Well, so this is another cool thing, and I'll show you guys another really rad little lore tidbit about the Black Templars. Here, let me see. First company elites, your sword brethren in PA and Tier are the same as first company elites in other chapters. The Primaris have supposed to have been in service for 200 years now, according to the new stuff. So they're supposed to be as experienced as everyone else by now. Interesting. Okay. Have you looked into the life of Hyperion the Swordbreaker? I don't know if I have, Harley. I know of Hyperion the superhero, but I don't know if I know about Hyperion the Swordbreaker. So let me go to the other codex here again, real quick for you guys. So this is kind of cool too. This is the name generator. So like if I had a D6 right now, I could roll 2d6 and then it would tell me the first name and the last name of each one of my, like each High Marshal or each Marshal or each, sword brethren within my army. And I love how they have these all kind of displayed. But I wanted to show you guys about, let's go into, by the way, this is the Black Templar Codex. You guys can go pick these up on the GW site if you want to read more about the Templars. So these are all the different crusades that they've been on. But it's here where we talk about their actual disposition and the marshal's household. So where the sword brethren come from, where the what the, like I said, the disposition of the actual units looks like. The Black Templars are more like medieval knights than soldiers, while other Space Marine chapters are more like a modern army, and others are more archaic and savage. Well, dude, if you, like, Black Templars are insane. Like, Black Templars are one of the few actual chapters who believe that the Emperor is a god. Like, is the god. Is God. Like, Black Templars pray to the god Emperor. So whereas maybe other factions believe that the Emperor of Man is a man and that he is not a god, the Black Templars reject that notion and say he is God. And to say anything other than that is heresy. So the Black Templars are fucking gnarly, man. They don't take shit from anyone. It is insane. Like, the Black Templars are literally insane. They do not allow psychers into their ranks because they are fearful that the warp will like, you know, create or be able to manifest demons within the ranks of the Black Templars. So they are pure, they are wholly pure, and do not allow any psychers or warp, you know, within their ranks. Like, they are just on another level of gnarly insanity, which is so rad. I thought their first names were brother. Yeah, they're all just brother something. Black Templars are like my guys, the Grey Knights. Very similar. They are old school and the extreme and high, suspicious of the other Astartes chapters too, easily corrupted by chaos. The only thing with Grey Knights, though, I thought the Grey Knights, I thought they allow librarians and psychers and stuff, right? Black Templars are like, fuck no, get that shit out of here. I think so, Shieldwall. I believe that's like Sisters of Battle are very heavy into, you know, God Emperor mindset. But let me, I also thought that was because they believe in the Edict of Nicaea was still in effect. I need to probably read more into that one, Brogan. They believe the Edict of Nicaea. Potentially. But in terms of their disposition, their unit cohesiveness, and how their, like, units are created, I thought that this was kind of interesting, and I believe it's here. But yes, here it is, their chapter organization. So I was looking at the wrong one, so I apologize. I was looking at the Marshal's household. I want to look at the chapter organization because I was wondering how many marshals there probably are. You know, could I create like 10 marshals? Could I create 10 sword brethren in Primaris armor? How many of these guys could I create? How many does the Emperor allow? So I looked in the Codex, and it says there seems to be little doubt, though, that the Black Templars number substantially more than the 1,000 Space Marines under arms stipulated by the Codex Astartes. There seems to be little doubt, though, that the Black Templar number substantially more than the 1,000 Space Marine under arms stipulated by the Codex Astartes. So, which means that the Emperor only allows 1,000 Space Marines to be employed at one time. Once they've reached, like, once that chapter has reached 1,000 maximum, they can't go past that in order to, like, not grow too much. But the Black Templars, they said, nah, fuck that, son. So no one actually knows how many Black Templars there are in the galaxy, in the universe. Because what they do is every time they liberate, and I say liberate very liberally, every time they liberate a world, they settle and they put a church there, and then they recruit other Black Templars on that world. So there are potentially tens of thousands of Black Templars at any given time crusading across the galaxy. That's fucking metal as shit. It's so cool that they have like so many more like Space Marines within their ranks, right? Fun fact, the Emperor would have been born again if he was allowed to fucking die. What did I miss? Oh, I went too far up. Grey Knights are all librarians and psychers. Malkador formed them on Titan at the end of the Heresy. I really don't know that much about Grey Knights, so I was going to say, I feel like they not only allowed psychers, but like are psychers, so... Max has fucked up fingernails. No, I do not. I actually cut them not too long ago. Look at that. Those are freaking nice. I just have cuts on them. Grey Knights are all psychers, but trained to resist chaos at the highest levels. They are demon hunters and the only psychers Black Templars will tolerate or crusade with. Yeah, because I know that like Black Templars are very notably like against the psycher thing. I'm going to read on here. Many of the more compliant chapters look askance as the Black Templars, resenting them for such flagrant disregard for the rules established by Guilliman. The Ordo Astartes has gone further, Inquisitor Yetzmov leading a century-long and thus far wholly fruitless mission to determine their true numbers and bring the chapter to heel. The Black Templars themselves are sanguine about such matters. They know with certainty that all they do with the express blessing of the God Emperor. Such a mandate surely overrules any mortal structures. So even though the Emperor says, hey, has to be 1,000, excuse me, not the Emperor. The Ordo Astartes and the Codex Astartes says, hey, it's got to be 1,000 by Guilliman. That is why the Black Templars are like, yeah, no, the Emperor commands us to do something else. So he wrote the Codex Astartes as a response to the heresy. He, not counting the support staff and command staff. I'm the hand critic. He ordered all the existing legions to break down in chapters of 1,000 soldiers. And that's why I think the Black Templars kind of went off and did their own thing, because they were like, yeah, I'm not here for that. Sorry, I think I misspoke earlier when I said, I might have said that they took their orders of the 1,000 from the Emperor. And I misspoke and I meant Guilliman. But they are also allowed to go over 1,000 Marines as long as they are on the Crusade, hence the Eternal Crusade. This breakdown is known as the Second Founding. Not all legions broke down into chapters. The 6th Legion of the Space Wolves had a failing Second Founding. Oh, that's right. Well, because the Space Wolves turn into Wolfen, right? From what I remember reading with Space Wolf, the novel series, and like Ragnar Blackmane and stuff, when they are given their gene seed, they have kind of like this 50-50 chance of becoming, I don't know the actual odds, but it's very likely that they could either turn into their, Space Marine selves, their Astartes Space Wolves, or that they could change into these like mutated Wolfen type creatures. So I thought that's kind of interesting. Was that what the Space Wolves failing was, is that the gene scene wasn't allowed to, or it didn't have enough power to create something else into a second founding newbie? I forget. Brogan says based Sig is... old Siggy. Most of the second founding chapters come from the Ultramarines. So in a way, what is law for other Space Marines are just suggestions for the Black Templars? Yeah, kinda, I guess so. I think I remember this one Games Workshop employee, and I don't know if this is correct or not, so you guys might have to correct me. But I remember there was this Games Workshop employee who told me that the Space Wolves, like even though the Codex Astartes requires that all Space Marines be snipped, that their sexual reproductive organs be removed, so that is not a thought process within them. I think what he was telling me was that the Space Wolves said, nah, we ain't doing that shit. And so the Space Wolves have actually kept their, male sexual or, reproductive organs or whatever. I thought that was kind of interesting, like I said, but I don't know if that's true or not. That was just what one of the Games Workshop employees told me. And I was like, that would be super based if the Space Wolves didn't take into consideration the Codex Astartes when it said that. And they were just like, nah, we're going to keep our shit, We will never believe in a corpse on a throne. If he knew what was coming, it would have been avoided. So your Legion, the Dark Angels, broke down into 6 second founding successor chapters, but although we followed the CA, we actually work as we are is still the unified Legion as we coordinate with each other to hunt the fallen. What up, Tim's Talk? Thank you for being here. Hail MVP, loved your Gatekeep 40K video. Hey, LDub78, thank you so much for being here, brother. I'm really, really glad to hear that you enjoyed that video. It was a pleasure for me to make that, and I'm glad that I got so many people that enjoyed it. So that is fantastic to hear. The basic core division is between Codex and non-Codex chapters. 9-meter tall Space Marines are the Galactic Jets. The Space Wolves failed 2 second foundings with just bad luck, I think. They still have trouble with the Wolfen Curse to this day. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I remember reading about the Wolfen, was that it's this flaw that continues to happen. But so, with all that being said, looking at this codex and looking at, there we go. Looking at this one as well, I think I ended up deciding to go with the Sword Brethren. So tonight we're going to be making some Sword Brethren, but they're not going to be in Terminator armor. They're going to be the Primaris Sword Brethren. They could probably also proxy as marshals as well if I wanted them to be, because a lot of them are going to be a lot of them are going to have attached to them either like a chainsword and bolter, chainsword and flamer, or like a not the black sword, which is the Emperor's Champion sword, but a lot of them will have power swords and stuff like that. Yeah, I know, right, Harley? Sorry, it took me an hour to finally get back into the build, or not get back into it, but just get into it. So let me go ahead and pull that out for you guys, and I'm gonna move this, and I'm going to, boom, there we go. All right. So I'm going to move this over. You guys are going to have to excuse me while I put that to the side. They're Black Templars, Max. Have a chainsword and another chainsword. You are 100% right. 100% right. So this one is actually pretty cool. So these all come from the Combat Patrol box set. And I've included some Combat Patrol stuff. I've also included some of the Indomitus box set figures. So this one is going to be... I'm going to move the microphone there. Kind of a mixture of that. And then also, I was able to get some custom parts. I don't know if you guys follow Spiky Bits, but he's got a blog where he posts different forums and different guys who do some custom bits. and some of these are absolutely gorgeous. So one of the ones that I acquired was this two-handed chainsword, a custom cape. So all the white, all the lighter gray is all resin. Some shoulder pads, and then a helm. So this is going to be like kind of the look I'm going for. This was just kind of a test piece to see if this was what I actually wanted this to look like. And so far so good. I really like the aesthetic of this, because they have the tabard in the front, they have the chainsword, the really detailed shoulder pads, and then, like I said, the cape in the back. And I need to re-glue this because I didn't get it the first time. Tooth and Coats, Max Tooth and Coats. That's a Duncan video. Hartley says, honest question, what's the difference between the books and the novella? I guess that is a good question, Harley. I mean, I've never really heard of Games Workshop novella. Everything I would assume is just on the Black Library site. I mean, that's where I find all my stuff, so I'm not really sure. Lord Thoth, what's going on, brother? Good to see you here, LT. Well, I'm gonna really quick. I'm gonna use the restroom, and then I shall be right back. But yeah, let me know, Harley, if you find an answer to that question, because I'm not actually sure. So, all right, I'll be right back. Aha, I've returned. Okay, so here's the next piece that I think I'm gonna work on. So you guys can tell I've already got the cape and the backpack on there. Okay, good. So far, so good in terms of glue. So I was doing this a little bit earlier today, and I was able to get a couple of these kind of done. But I wanted to make sure that I had the right pieces before I came on tonight. So this guy is gonna have more of like a charging look. His dual-handed chainsword is gonna be a little bit higher. But for the resin, I have to use this extreme power medium glue from Hobby Lobby, as opposed to like my regular tester's glue that I normally get. It's just for like plastic minis or whatnot. Are you going to focus or not? I guess not. But yeah, just regular plastic glue. And actually, while I do that, all right, let me know if you guys can hear this, okay?
Part 2. Fortis Binary Forge World. one. The night sky was matte and dark, like the material of the fatigues they wore, day after day. The dawn stabbed in, as silent and sudden as a knife wound, welling up a dull redness.
Are you guys able to hear the voiceover? I'll wait for you guys in chat. If you guys can hear, just give me like a Y or a thumbs up or a yes, or just anything that'll give me a indication that you guys are able to hear the novelization. Rachel says, any luck with the Hobby Lobby ladies yet? No, actually. No, I'm not. A2 says, yep, I can hear it. Okay, cool. Rachel says, yeah. Sweet. Okay, sweet. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and put that on as we build. But this is the Gaunt's Ghost, first and only. This is chapter 1 of the second part, written by Dan Abnett. So enjoy while we build.
Through the black cloth of the sky. Eventually, the sun rose, casting raw amber light down over the trench lines. The star was big, heavy and red, like a rotten roasted fruit. Dawn lightning crackled 1,000 kilometers away. Colm Corbeck woke, acknowledged briefly the 1,000 aches and snarls in his limbs and frame, and rolled out of his billet in the trench dugout. His great booted feet kissed into the grey slime of the trench floor where the duck boards didn't meet. Corbeck was a large man on the wrong side of 40, built like an ox and going to fat. His broad and hairy forearms were decorated with blue spiral tattoos, and his beard was thick and shaggy. He wore the black webbing and fatigues of the Tanith, and also the ubiquitous camo cloak which had become their trademark. He also shared the pale complexion, black hair, and blue eyes of his people. He was the colonel of the Tanith First and Only, the so-called Gaunt's Ghosts. He yawned. Down the trench, under the frag sack and gabion breastwork and the spools of rusting razor wire, the ghosts awoke too. There were coughs, gasps, soft yelps as nightmares became real in the light of waking. Matches struck under the low bevel of the parapet. Firearms were unswaddled and the damp cleaned off. Firing mechanisms were slammed in and out. Food parcels were unhooked from their vermin-proof positions up on the billet roofs. Shuffling in the ooze, Corbeck stretched and cast an eye down the long, zigzag traverses of the trench to see where the picket sentries were returning, pale and weary, asleep on their feet. The twinkling lights of the vast communication uplink masts flashed 11 kilometers behind them, rising between the rusting, shell-pocked roofs of the gargantuan shipyard silos and the vast Titan fabrication bunkers and foundry sheds of the Adeptus Mechanicus tech priesthood. The dark stealth capes of the picket sentries, the distinctive uniform of the Tanith First and Only, were lank and stiff with dried mud. Their replacements at the picket, bleary-eyed and puffy, slapped them on the arms as they passed, exchanging jokes and cigarettes. The night sentries, though, were too weary to be forthcoming. They were ghosts, returning to their graves, Corbeck thought, as are we all. In a hollow under the trench wall, Mad Larkin, the first squad's wiry sniper, was cooking up something that approximated caffeine in a battered tin tray over a fusion burner. The acrid stink hooked Corbeck.
Soul Assassin asks, question, are the Warhammer books in one canon, or can you pick one and start from there? You can technically pick up one, but depending on what era, it will be somewhat confusing, Soul. So I would recommend watching some YouTube videos on Warhammer lore, and then from there going into maybe what armies you really like. So if you really like Chaos factions, or you really like Space Marine factions, or you like Tau factions, or like, whichever army you do enjoy the most, I would start looking up books for those. You can't, anything Dan Abnett, you cannot go wrong. anything Aaron Dembski Bowden, cannot go wrong. If you're really into Space Marines, I would look into Space Marine Battles. Those books are fantastic. Horus Heresy is going to be like pre 40K. So it's going to be all the events that lead up to the spoilers, killing of the Emperor, and not the killing of the Emperor, but the killing of Sanguinius and the betrayal of Horus against the Emperor. So just little things like that. I would definitely start with that's a good question. You can't go wrong with Gaunt's Ghosts, which is what we're listening to right now, and you also can't go wrong with Eisenhorn. A lot of those kind of introduce you on the ground level, as these are like human stories, like human qualities in the world of 40K. So something like that. But yeah, I came across Warhammer videos explaining the story in 20 minutes. Oh, nice, Cajun. That's awesome. I'm waiting for Warhammer dating. For the Emperor, we must imbue a brood of pure violence. If only, Harley. Just wait till Slaanesh gets a hold of you. Wouldn't that be alluring? I'm glad they stuck with the lore of Astartes being males. It sets good groundwork for a unified universe. Oh, thank you, Rachel. I'm glad it looks good. Yeah, newbie, the thing with the male Space Marines is like, I think, because if they are supposed to be a military faction, even for me as in the Marine Corps, like when I was deployed with an infantry company, and there were no female Marines with us on that deployment. The females that served in that capacity were not in the infantry company, proper. And I think that if the Space Marines are going to kind of hold to that standard of like militarized, not saying that females can't be in the military or females can't be in infantry positions. There are females within the infantry, but the rule of that normally is that males tend to be in infantry positions or whatnot. I'm not trying to be misogynistic or sexist or anything. I'm just saying this is what normally is the rule for military, especially in infantry. So if the Space Marines are taking after a militarized lore, then that would make sense, especially if the gene seed is coming from a male emperor. It would only make sense that once that is imbued within male Space Marines, that it makes sense. They are in series, so it's best to read a series in order, but other books are all over the place timeline. Yeah, it's pretty wild. The Emperor never dies. Most of my Marines are Beakies from the original plastic box. Oh, holy shit. Nice, Silverlock. Remember the metal ones? The metal ones were so difficult to put together. Sapphire's Kane books are great as well. Yep. Horus Rising, I'm new to 40K, so I started knowing nothing. Had to restart the book 3 times. Yeah, Paul, it's tough, brother. It is not easy to get into this hobby, so I will say that, and I do apologize. But yeah, it is not for the faint of heart. Jennifer Lawrence was the first Space Marine, says Cajun. She was. She was the first female Space Marine, action hero, everything. She did it first. And that's why I love the Sisters of Battle, Jay. I think they're actually cooler than... If they were to do female Space Marines, it wouldn't be as cool as Sisters of Battle. Oh, thank you, newbie. I'll have to read that. Yeah, I'll read that in just a sec.
Back by the nostrils. Give me some of that, Larks, the colonel said, squelching across the trench. Larkin was a skinny, stringy, unhealthily pale man in his 50s, with 3 silver hoops through his left ear and a purple-blue spiral worm tattoo on his sunken right cheek. He offered up a misshapen metal cup. There was a fragile look of fatigue and fear in his wrinkled eyes.
This morning, Derekin. This morning.
Corbeck pursed his lips, enjoying the warmth of the cup in his hefty paw.
Who knows?
His voice trailed off. High in the orange troposphere, a matched pair of Imperial fighters shrieked over, curved around the lines, and plumed away north. Fire smoke lifted from Adeptus Mechanicus work temples on the horizon, great cathedrals of industry now burning from within. A second later, the dry wind brought the crump of detonations. Corbeck watched the fighters go and sipped his drink. It was almost unbearably disgusting. "Good stuff," he muttered to Larkin. A kilometre off, down the etched zigzag of the trench line, Trooper Falk was busily going crazy. Major Rawn, the regiment's second officer, was woken by the sound of a lasgun firing at close range, the phosphorescent impacts ringing into frag sacks and mud. Rawn spun out of his cramped billet as his adjutant, Fagor, stumbled up nearby. There were shouts and oaths from the men around them. Falk had seen vermin, the ever-present vermin, attacking his rations, chewing into the plastic seals with their snapping lizard mouths. As Rawn blundered down the trench, the animals skittered away past him, lopping on their big rabbit legs, their lice-ridden pelts smeared flat with ooze. Falk was firing his lasgun on full auto into his sleeping cavity under the bulwark, screaming obscenities at the top of his fractured voice. Fagor got there first, wrestling the weapon from the bawling trooper. Falk turned his fists on the adjutant, mashing his nose, splashing up grey mud water with his scrambling boots. Rawn slid in past Fagor and put Falk out. Rawn slid in past Fagor and put Falk out with a hook to the jaw. There was a crack of bone and the trooper went down, whimpering, in the drainage gully. "Assemble a firing squad detail," Rawn spat at the bloody Fagor unceremoniously and stalked back to his dugout. Trooper Bragg wove back to his bunk. A huge man, unarguably the largest of the ghosts, he was a peaceable, simple soul. They called him Try Again Bragg because of his terrible aim. He'd been on picket all night, and now his bed was singing a lullaby he couldn't resist. He slammed into young Trooper Caffran at a turn in the dugout and almost knocked the smaller man flat. Bragg hauled him up, his weariness clamming his apologies in his mouth. "No harm done, Try," Caffran said. "Get your billet." Bragg blundered on. 2 paces more, and he'd even forgotten what he'd done. He simply had an after-image memory of an apology he should have made to a good friend. Fatigue was total. Caffran ducked down into the crevice of the command dugout, just off the 3rd communication trench. There was a thick polyfiber shield over the door, and layers of anti-gas curtaining. He knocked twice, and then pulled back the heavy drapes, and dropped into the deep cavity.
Yeah, I guess I do have a little bit too much focus, know me. I'm realizing, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but the custom-made white resin shoulder pad is much larger than the regular gray plastic shoulder pad from the Games Workshop model. So I'm gonna have to figure out what to do with that. I can't tell if it's the placement of the arm and the sword that's kind of making the shoulder pad like go farther back here, or if this one's just much larger. I think this one's just massive. So I may need to figure out how to properly accommodate that, because I'm kind of trying to do a little bit of a mixture of both. Yeah, but it looks like those bigger shoulder pads are going to work much better with the resin kits. I'm trying to figure out the best way to position his head, because I'm debating. So he's got a stance where his So his here, I'll do a little play action for you guys here. So his arms are back here, and he's coming forward like he's about to sweep across, kind of like he's hitting a baseball bat. So his arms are back here coming across. So I'm debating if his head needs to be down, like charging in with his hands back, like ready for this, or if his head needs to be up, looking about to like have a larger swing, or if he's more down, like charging forward. You guys know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm debating which one I want to go with. So that's kind of what I'm doing with the head. Oh, dude, Silverlock. Thank you so much, brother, for the $19.99. That is very gracious of you. Thank you. He says, here's for more bits. you know that it's absolutely going to more bits. I promise you that. Or it will go, right back into the channel. But arguably, I guess you could say both, because if I do, more bits, this will go to more streams and stuff. So for that, I give you this. Awesome. Thank you, Silverlock. I greatly appreciate that. And Merry Christmas to you, brother. Yeah, so Paul, I have him leading with the larger shoulder pauldron, because that's his offhand. So I figure if that's what he's leading with, like his left shoulder, that's going to be like the larger of the two shoulder pauldrons. Depends on the angle of the body. Is the body angled downward? If so, the head should also be down. Let's see. I guess it's kind of, I don't know. It seems to be almost a little bit more upright than forward. Because if you look at like this one, for example, this is just like a in progress one. I haven't really done anything to this guy. Oh, hold on. It always likes to focus on the stuff that's down here. Oh well. But you guys can kind of tell with this one that the form is much farther forward. Like his leg is actually up towards his chest almost, because he's like running in like a forward motion. Whereas this one seems to be a little bit more upright. Yeah. Max, do you still listen to As I Lay Dying despite Tim Lambesis hiring a hitman for his wife? Ooh, yeah, Nomi, this was a large debate with my buddies and I when we heard about the that news. When they actually came back once Tim was released from prison, I went to their first show that was actually down in San Diego, and it was quite the experience. I mean, that was one of those things I'll never forget in my life. Tim, I don't know. Every time I've met him, he's been extremely gracious. But I've only met him like 3 times. Whereas like these guys live with him. They have to try and like, work with him and be in this band with him. And so obviously now most of them have left the band. So he obviously had a personality that was not mixing with them. So it's super unfortunate. It's one of the more sad, metal bands that have disbanded. But yeah, pretty heavy. Larger the pauldron, the closer to the God Emperor. Anyway, Nomi, to answer your question, yes, I still do listen to As I Lay Dying, and I will. I want to support their music and them as a band, and yeah, it's tough to do that when You hear stuff like that from their lead singer. Head needs to be looking at where the strike is aimed. Yes. Eyes where he wants the sword. Oh, there you go, Jay. Okay, interesting. I'd say angle the head upward then, plus the larger pauldron is up front. He need to raise his head to see over it. Good point. Good point. The downward head doesn't. And plus the head that's more upward, the head that's like kind of looking more up and down, like up and I guess it would be up and to the right, kind of watching his blade as it comes down. It makes more sense too because I think it's also more kinetic. So like the model looks more like it's actually moving. So all right. Thank you for the help, chat. I always appreciate that.
2. The officer's dugout was deep, accessed only by an aluminium ladder lashed to the wall. Inside, the light was a frosty white from the sodium burners. The floor was well made of duckboards, and there were even such marks of civilization as shelves, books, charts, and an aroma of decent caffeine. Sliding down into the command burrow, Kafran noticed first Bryn Milo, the 16-year-old mascot the Ghosts had acquired at their founding. Word was Milo had been rescued personally from the fires of their homeworld by the Commissar himself, and this bond had led him to his status of regimental musician and adjutant to their senior officer. Kafran didn't like to be around the boy much. There was something about his youth and his brightness of eye that reminded him of the world they had lost. It was ironic. Back on Tanith, with only a year or two between them, they, like as not, would have been friends. Milo was setting out breakfast on a small camp table. The smell was delicious. Cooking eggs and ham and some toasted bread. Kafran envied the Commissar, his position, and his luxuries. "Has the Commissar slept well?" Kafran asked. "He hasn't slept at all," Milo replied. "He's been up through the night, reviewing reconnaissance transmissions from the orbital watch." Kafran hesitated in the entranceway to the burrow, clutching his sealed purse of communiques. He was a small man, for a Tanith, and young, with shaved black hair and a blue dragon tattoo on his temple. "Come in. Sit yourself down." At first, Kafran thought Milo had spoken, but it was the Commissar himself. Ibram Gaunt emerged from the rear chamber of the dugout, looking pale and drawn. He was dressed in his uniform trousers and a white singlet with regimental braces strapped tight in place. He gestured Kafran to the seat opposite him at the small camp table and then swung down onto the other stool. Kafran hesitated again and then sat at the place indicated. Gaunt was a tall, hard man in his 40s, and his lean face utterly matched his name. Trooper Kafran admired the Commissar enormously and had studied his previous actions at Balhout at formal prime, his service with the Hyakan 8th, even his majestic command of the disaster that was Tanith. Gaunt seemed more tired than Kafran had ever seen, but he trusted this man to bring them through. If anyone could redeem the Ghosts, it would be Ibram Gaunt. He was a rare beast, a political officer who had been granted full regimental command and the brevet rank of colonel. "I'm sorry to interrupt your breakfast, Commissar," Kafran said, sitting uneasily at the camp table, fussing with the purse of communiques. "Not at all, Kafran. In fact, you're just in time to join me." Kafran hesitated once more, not knowing if this was a joke. "I'm serious," Gaunt said. "You look as hungry as I feel. And I'm sure Bryn has cooked up more than enough for 2. As if on cue, the boy produced 2 ceramic plates of food, mashed eggs and grilled ham with tough, toasted chunks of wheat bread. Kafran looked at the plate in front of him for a moment, as Gaunt tucked into his with relish. "Go on, eat up. It's not every day you get a chance to taste officers' rations," Gaunt said, wolfing down a forkful of eggs. Kafran nervously picked up his own fork and began to eat. It was the best meal he'd had in 60 days. It reminded him of his days as an apprentice engineer in the wood mills of lost Tanith, back before the founding and the loss of the wholesome suppers served on the long tables of the refectory after last shift. Before long, He was consuming the breakfast with as much gusto as the commissar, who smiled at him appreciatively. The boy Milo then produced a steaming pot of thick caffeine, and it was time to talk business. "So, what do the dispatches tell us this morning?" Gaunt started.
I don't know, sir.
Catherine said, pulling out the communique purse and dropping it onto the tabletop in front of him. "I just carry these things. I never ask what's in them." Gaunt paused for a moment, chewing a mouthful of eggs and ham. He took a long sip of his steaming drink and then reached out for the purse. Catherine thought to look away as Gaunt unsealed the plastic envelope and read the printout strips contained within. "I've been up all night at that thing," Gaunt said, gesturing over his shoulder to the green glow of the tactical communication artificer built into the muddy wall of the command burrow. "And it's told me nothing." Gaunt reviewed the dispatches that spilled out of Catherine's purse. "I bet you and the men are wondering how long we'll be dug into this hellhole," Gaunt said. "The truth is, I can't tell you. This is a war of attrition. We could be here for months." Catherine was by now feeling so warm and satisfied by the good meal he had just eaten that the commissar could have told him his mother had been murdered by orcs, and he wouldn't have worried much. "Sir," Milo's voice was a sudden intruder into the gentle calm. Gaunt looked up. "What is it, Bryn?" he said. I think there's an attack coming." Catherine chuckled. "How could you know?" he began, but the commissar cut him off. "Somehow, Milo's sensed each attack so far before it's come. Each one. Seems he has a gift for anticipating shellfall. Perhaps it's his young ears." Gaunt crooked a wry grin at Catherine. "Do you want to argue, eh?" Catherine was about to answer when the first wail of shells howled in. 3. Gaunt leapt to his feet, knocking the camp table over. It was the sudden motion rather than the scream of incoming shells which made Catherine leap up in shock. Gaunt was scrabbling for his sidearm, hanging in its holster on a hook by the steps. He grabbed the speech horn of the boxcaster set, slung under the racks that held his books. "Gaunt to all units! To arms! To arms! Prepare for..."
See, Jay, she says, cleaning off mold lines, my favorite job, so satisfying and therapeutic. Jay, I should probably send you my models then, because cleaning off mold lines is got to be by far the thing I hate the most about. I love building, but it's always about like the positioning, how anatomically correct I want to make something, or what weapon should go with this thing. But cleaning off mold lines is like it's so tedious and meticulous. I'm always like, no, not more mold lines. Like if normally Space Marines have them, I think Space Marines probably have them the worst. They are just everywhere. Every little nook and cranny, there's a mold line. It's funny. So in this novel, The Gaunt's Ghost, First and Only, I think it's this chapter, but Gaunt says something like, "Come on, you bastards, do you want to live forever?" or something like that, which is a direct quote, at least very, very similar to a Marine Corps quote by Gunnery Sergeant Dan Daly from during World War I. And I wonder if Dan Abnett took that quote and kind of, utilized it for the novel because it is so classic. It's such a great quote from the Marine Corps. "A commissar without his bolt pistol on him at all times. What is this heresy? The mold release leaves residue." Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you, Harley. That's a good pro tip. "I do it for all my husband's builds. One of the many reasons he loves me." Well, that'll do it. That'll do it for sure. That is true love right there. But yeah, let me play this because I'm pretty sure he says it during this attack as like the artillery starts to begin to hit their trenches. I think he says it.
"For maximum resistance." Catherine didn't wait for any further instruction. He was already up the steps and banging through the gas curtains as volleys of shells assaulted their trenches. Huge plumes of vaporized mud spat up from the trench head behind him, and the narrow gully was full of the yells of suddenly animated guardsmen. A shell whinnied down low across his position and dug a hole the size of a dropship behind the rear breastwork of the trench. Liquid mud drizzled down on him. Kafran pulled his lasgun from its sling and slithered up towards the top of the trench fire step. There was chaos, panic, troopers hurrying in every direction, screaming and shouting. Was this it? Was this the final moment in the long, drawn-out conflict they had found themselves in? Kafran tried to slide up the side of the trench far enough to get a sight over the lip, across no man's land to the enemy's emplacements, which they had been locked into for the last 6 months. All he could see was a mist of smoke and mud. There was a crackle of las weapons and several screams. More shells fell. One of them found the center of a nearby communications trench. Then the screaming became real and immediate. The drizzle that fell on him was no longer water and mud. There were body parts in it. Kafran cursed and wiped the sight lens of his lasgun clean of filth. Behind him he heard a shout, a powerful voice that echoed along the traverses of the trench and seemed to shake the duckboards. He looked back to see Commissar Gaunt emerging from his dugout. Gaunt was dressed now in his full-dress uniform and cap, the camo cloak of his adopted regiment swirling about his shoulders, his face a mask of bellowing rage. In one hand he held his bolt pistol, and in the other his chainsword, which whined and sang in the early morning air. "In the name of Tanith! Now they are on us, we must fight. Hold the line, and hold your fire until they come over the mud wall." Kafran felt a rejoicing in his soul. The Commissar was with them, and they would succeed, no matter the odds. Then something closed down his world with a vibratory shock that blew mud up into the air and seemed to separate his spirit from his body. The section of trench had taken a direct hit. Dozens of men were dead. Kafran lay stunned in the broken line of duckboards and splattered mud. A hand grabbed him by the shoulder and hauled him up. Blinking, he looked up to see the face of Gaunt. Gaunt looked at him with a solemn yet inspiring gaze. "Sleeping after a good breakfast?" the Commissar inquired of the bewildered trooper. "No, sir, I... The crack of lasguns and needle lasers began to whip around them from the armored loopholes on the trench head. Gaunt wrenched Kafran back to his feet. "I think the time has come," Gaunt said, "and I'd like all of my brave men to be in the line with me when we advance." Spitting out grey mud, Kafran laughed. "I'm with you, sir," he said. "From Tanith to wherever we end up." Kafran heard the whine of Gaunt's chainsword as the Commissar leapt up the scaling ladder nailed into the trench wall above the fire step and yelled to his men. "Men of Tanith, do you want to live forever?" Their reply...
See? I told you it was in here. I was waiting for it. I was like, I'm pretty sure he says it in this battle. But, yeah, I love that. Come on. Men of Tanith, do you want to live forever? Great line. And yeah, look up Gunnery Sergeant Dan Daly. That dude was a freaking absolute goat.
Loud and raucous, was lost in the barrage of shells. But Ibram Gaunt knew what they had said. Weapons blazing, Gaunt's ghosts went over the top and blasted their way towards glory, death, or whatever else awaited them in the smoke. 4. There was a sizzling thicket of lasfire 100 paces deep and 20 kilometers long, where the advancing legions of the enemy met the Imperial Guard regiments head-on. It looked for all the world like squirming nests of colonial insects, bursting forth from their mounds and meeting in a chaotic mess.
Rachel, the mold lines that I have to clean off are actually only for the gray pieces, because they're like a plastic from the Games Workshop pieces. The white ones, like the shoulder pads, the head sculpts, the capes, stuff like that, those don't really have as many mold lines, and I'm wondering if it's just because of the resin that the creator used, or the sculptor, or whatever you want to call the individual who produced the pieces, those like custom pieces. I don't know what 3D printer they use, but whatever it is, I mean, I haven't had to clean. I've had to clean off like a couple of resin like strands, but not really a lot of mold lines, thankfully. It's more so like the Games Workshop gray stuff. Almost all of it has at least some mold lines that I always tend to have to clean off, which is a bummer, because it's always so tedious. But Dan Daly, damn dude, I know, right? Do you want to live forever? Yes, it's recalf and corpse starch for dinner. Exactly.
Mess of seething forms, lit by the incessant and incandescent sparking crossfire of their weapons. Lord High Militant General Hector Travere turned away from his tripod-mounted scope. He smoothed the faultless breast of his tunic with well-manicured hands and sighed.
"Who would that be, dying down there?"
he asked in his disturbingly thin, reedy voice. Colonel Flens, field commander of the Jantine Patricians, one of the oldest and most venerated Guard regiments, got off his couch and stood smartly to attention. Flens was a tall, powerful man, the tissue of his left cheek disfigured long ago by a splash of tyrannid bioacid.
General?
Those ants down there.
Revere gestured idly over his shoulder.
I wondered who they were.
Flens strode across the veranda to the chart table, where a flat glass plate was illuminated from beneath with glowing indication runes. He traced a finger across the glass, assessing the 400 kilometers of battlefield front line, which represented the focus of the war here on Fortis Binary, a vast and ragged pattern of opposing trench systems, facing each other across a mangled deadland of cratered mud and shattered factories.
The western trenches,
He began.
they are held by the Tanith 1st Regiment. You know them, sir. Gaunt's mob. What some of the men call the Ghosts, I believe.
Revere wandered across to an ornate refreshment cart and poured himself a tiny cup of rich black caffeine from the gilt samovar. He sipped and for a moment sloshed the heavy fluid between his teeth. Flens cringed. Colonel Draker Flens had seen things in his time that would have burned through the souls of most ordinary men. He had watched legions die on the wire. He had seen men eat their comrades in a frenzy of chaos-induced madness. He had seen planets, whole planets, collapse and die and rot. There was something about General Revere that touched him more deeply and more repugnantly than any of that. It was a pleasure to serve him. Revere swallowed at last and set aside his cup.
"So Gaunt's ghosts get the wake-up call this morning,"
he said. Hector Revere was a squat, bullish man in his 60s, balding and yet insistent upon lacquering the few remaining strands of hair across his scalp as if to prove a point. He was fleshy and ruddy, and his uniform seemed to require an entire regimental ration of starch and whitening to prepare each morning. There were medals on his chest which stuck out on a stiff brass pin. He always wore them. Flens was not entirely...
I always think that's an interesting line, when he writes that, I think it's Colonel or General Dravere. He says that the Colonel or General always wears his medals, and it's very indicative of that character, because that character is extremely, like, he's not a good guy, right? Like, he's not the hero that we portray with Commissar Gaunt. But yeah, he's like he's trying to prove something, or that he's so prideful in his medals that even in battle, like, he always wears his medals. I thought that was kind of just an interesting little take on that. Dr. Rachel says, imagine having to clean mold lines from life-size armor. I do not want to have to imagine that, because that sounds awful. That sounds brutal. Yikes. Oof. That'd be... Yeah. Jay says, Abnett uses a lot of real-life accounts of war for his inspiration for battle scenes. It's why his writing feels so real, even in the craziness of 40K. I believe it. It makes sense. A lot of Gaunt's Ghosts, these first few chapters, are so... It's eerie how similar they are to Marine Corps lifestyle. Whether you're in the field, like in training exercises, or on deployment, I feel like Dan must have been in the military, even if it was like in the UK or something. Like I feel like he has to be some sort of veteran, because the way that he writes the Imperial Guard are like second to none. Even with Eisenhorn, like his characterizations of people are just like perfect. He does a very, very good job of bringing verisimilitude to a universe that technically like shouldn't even have that. Shouldn't even have any type of like realistic, because it is so out there and satirical and so beyond our wildest dreams. He's still able to bring it down to earth in a way that like we can still understand it with the characters that he portrays. So I really like the Gaunt's Ghost stuff because it's so reminiscent of Marine Corps lifestyle, like I said.
Entirely sure what they all represented. He had never asked. He knew that Revere had seen at least as much as him, and had taken every ounce of glory for it that he could. Sometimes Flenz resented the fact that the Lord General always wore his decorations. He supposed it was because the Lord General had them, and he did not. That was what it meant to be a Lord General. The ducal palace on whose veranda they now stood was miraculously intact after 6 months of serial bombardment, and overlooked the wide rift valley of Demos, once the hydroelectric industrial heartland of Fortis Binary, now the axis on which the war revolved. In all directions, as far as the eye could see, sprawled the gross architecture of the manufacturing zone, the towers and hangars, the vaults and bunkers, the storage tanks and chimney stacks. A great ziggurat rose to the north, the brilliant gold icon of the Adeptus Mechanicus displayed on its flank. It rivaled, perhaps even surpassed, the Temple of the Ecclesiarchy, dedicated to the god Emperor. But then, the tech priests of Mars would argue this entire world was a shrine to the god machine incarnate. The ziggurat had been the administrative heart of the tech priests' industry on Fortis, from where they directed a workforce of 19 billion in the production of armor and heavy weaponry for the Imperial war machine. It was a burnt-out shell now. It had been the uprising's first target.
So here's the
in the far hills of the valley.
Here's the next question. Do we put on a helmetless head for one of our sword brethren here, as he charges with his chain sword kind of aimed towards the enemy here? Or do we just utilize another Primaris helmet? I don't know. I feel like with a lot of my Space Wolves army, I have them without their helmets for most of them, because I like that more feral look, where it's like they've just completely ripped off their helmets and they're just like, yeah, we're going into this thing just raw. And I like that there's kind of this medieval knight aspect to the Black Templars, where they always have their helmets on. So I don't know. I like the emotion that's shown in the face. Like he's screaming pretty intensely here. But this one is also gorgeous because it has that like wreath around the head, and it's got like the Black Templar skull on the forehead. So I don't know. With the Primaris Brethren, I'm doing the wreath around each one of their head to kind of like symbolize this veteran look, to kind of symbolize their status amongst the ranks of the other Crusaders. Jay says, my husband is currently trying not to be offended by even if it was only in the UK military comment. He says, typical bloody yank. I didn't mean it that way. I just said he must have been in the military, whether it was American or UK, I'm not sure. But I am a bloody yank. I will agree to that. That's fair. Templars going in raw? Nah. Templars don't even think about that. They say, "Get behind me, Slanesh. Get behind me, Satan. You have no power here." And then they burn the witch, as Templars do. But yeah, no, I think the... Well, I don't know. This is a cool model. I mean, to be fair, these are all really rad, especially with the custom bits. That like it takes them to a different level, you know. But I think, yeah, I think I may end up just going with the helmet. We'll need a fuck it all ground strike. Always follow the rule of cool, says Newbie. I agree with that. I agree with that. Shoot, it has already been 2 hours, guys. Well, almost. Just about 2 hours. That's wild. That went so fast. I don't know why that went so fast tonight. Or why that went by so quickly. What do y'all think about the novel in the back? Do you guys prefer like listening to the chill hop or the lo-fi? Or do you like want me to kind of continue to talk throughout the build streams? Because I figure it can do like a little bit of both. Oh, hold on one sec. Sorry, I was getting a call on my phone. It went fast because it's 40K, yeah. Let's be honest, we're single men. Time's fun when you're having flies or something like that, Rachel. One of those things. But yeah, no, let me know what you guys think, because novel was nice to build along to. Oh, cool. Okay, good. Monopoly, otherwise known as Monopoly. Yeah, Harley. Hi, Mom. Yeah, I like the novel in the background because I can listen to it. You guys can listen to it. I have to check and see if it's going to get hit on the copyright stuff. So I have to make sure that I'm not infringing on anything like that. The Black Legion just called. The story was cool for new people to get an idea of what the world is like. I think more of that would be cool. Okay, great, Shield Wall. Good. The book can go away. There's no context. There's no context to the book. I could maybe potentially, because we're starting pretty much from the first portion of this book. Hubby says he forgives you mainly because he was serving when you were still in high school. Raziel, hello. He says, why hello? Why hello there? The novel is nice, but having to continue to stop it to talk with chat is a bit bothersome. Okay, fair. GW will hit you on it. I sure hope not, man. But I don't doubt that. They pretty much will hit most things. So I totally see that. Time flies when you're having fun. Speaking of which, it's going on 4 a.m. English time, so I'm off. Tra for now, kids. I'll no doubt see you in Poor Choices. Yes, Newbie, absolutely. The Emperor protects. He does. The Emperor protects. For the Emperor, Newbie. Thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate you coming by and giving some of your expertise, your lore expertise. I greatly appreciate that. So thanks, brother. But yeah, well then maybe next time we'll just do the music, or maybe we can do a little bit about like we'll do some streams with it, some streams without it, but just thought it would be a nice addition. It also depends on whether or not I do get hit for it, like I said. So I got to check the stream after this and make sure that it's still monetized, or that, you know, it didn't get struck, or that it didn't get caught by the old algorithm. But yeah, guys, I am really looking forward to seeing where this goes. Because like I said, if these are any indications here, let me see if it'll focus for us right now. Yeah, if these are any indications of where these Templars are going to be headed, I have a good feeling that our Templar sword brethren here are going to look pretty rad. So I am all about the rule of cool. I love how these look. The aesthetic to these are very medieval knight, Templar-esque. So I'm digging it so far, especially with the dual-handed chain swords and stuff. Looks really rad. And we still have more, like I said, I've got power swords in here. We've got bolt pistols, las guns, or las pistols, stuff like that. Let's see. I have many armies. Why does everyone else play, or what does everyone else play? Great question, Reziel. I'm a Black Templar guy and Space Wolves guy. So those are the ones that I collect, build, and war game with. Max only shows up to poor choices when someone mentions boobs. Cajun, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm an old man, Max. Been doing it for 30 years thereabouts. Wow. Newbie. Hell yeah, man. I did not know that. Well, damn. You are wise beyond my years. Absolutely. So your expertise is always welcome. And we have a super chat from Dr. Rachel for $10. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for the 10. Great Warhammer stream. Hope we'll have more of these in the future. Absolutely. I will guarantee you that. And for that, I will give you this.
I am iron. I am wrath. I am doom.
Here, I'll go full screen for you guys. Yeah, Nomi says if X-Ray or Tug says boobies three times, Max will appear in the chat. You are not wrong. That is absolutely correct. They really, sometimes they only have to say it once, honestly. Dr. Rachel is the real shit. She is. She 100% is. So yeah, thank you again, Rachel, for the super chat. Harley Cajun says for $4.99 for more Warhammer build streams. Nice, dude. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much for the $4.99. That is excellent. I wish I had more Warhammer stuff, but I do not, unfortunately. I just have those 2 clips. So I will give you this. That's a good call, Rachel. I think here, let me turn on some music. That's a good call, Rachel. I think I will have to either put a different sheet of paper down or something that's a solid color, right? So that it focuses a bit better. Next time, get a black sheet of paper to put underneath. Yeah. Paul Anderson for $5. Sweet, man. Thank you for the 5. Just increase you get hit and being new, just like hearing the lore. Awesome, Paul. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. This one's for you.
Strength and honor.
Strength and honor.
What we doing live? Echoes in eternity.
Jay says, I play Grey Knights, Sisters, Imperial Fists, and Phobos Marines and Kill Team. Nice. Max, you ever watch Flash Glitz series of Black Templars versus Furries? No, I have not seen that, but that sounds hilarious and wild. I guess I will have to watch that now. I have a Space Marine army, my own chapter called the King's Knights. Oh, that's right, Silverlock. I remember you telling me about that. Hell yeah. Well, thank you guys so much again for the super chats. That was very generous of y'all. That was awesome. He's trying to do more music because that's what Pogues do. Oh man, no, the Pogues don't understand real wartime. That you have to have music during battle. I have Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Ultramarines, Tyranids, Necrons, Death Guard, and Imperial Knights. Hell yeah, dude. That is a ton. That's a ton of models. That's some plastic crack if I've ever heard of it. But that's rad. Well, thank you guys again for being here. We normally wrap up around 2 hours, so I'm going to call it a night. But I look forward to doing more of these because this is a lot of fun. And what I will most likely do next time is probably just have the music going and we can just sit back, chill, and do some more building. Once again, thank you for the support with the Warhammer video. Thank you for the support on this live stream. And, oh yeah, Merry Christmas. I hope you guys all had a fantastic Christmas, like I said at the beginning. And if I don't see you, no, you know what? I will see you guys before the new year. Don't worry. I will see you before New Year's Eve. And I am hoping to come out with my favorite comics of 2022, like my top 10 comics of 2022. So hopefully that video will be produced here pretty soon and you guys can have that. But yeah, once again, always appreciate the support. It is always welcome here. And I always love hanging with you guys and getting to build and paint and all this good stuff. So been awesome. Have a good night, y'all. Thank you, Soul. Have a great night, everyone. Shield Wall, thank you. Thanks for a fun stream, Max. Merry Christmas and good night. Nice. I'll hit the bell for this in the future. Thanks, Reziel. I appreciate that. Happy New Year. Glad to pop in. Have a good night. Happy New Year. Thank you, Nomi. Same to you. Good night, Max, in the wonderful chat. Hail to you, Cajun. Giveaways. Let's go. I don't have that kind of money, Harley. Get out of here. But if I did have like maybe duplicates of comics, maybe I could do that as like giveaways or something. But all right, guys, y'all are the best. Thank you, Dr. Rachel. Looking forward to new videos before 2023. And thank you, Jay. Good night, all. Great stream. I will see you guys soon. Always remember to reject modernity and embrace your legacy, especially when the Emperor protects. Especially when we are for the Emperor, right? All right, guys, it's been a great stream tonight. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, take care.